My name is Clara Montgomery, and at 35 years old, I never imagined I'd be a millionaire architect with a past that would bring tears to the eyes of strangers. When I was 8, my biological parents decided I was a burden they no longer wished to carry, all because I had committed the unforgivable crime of being born a girl. 26 years down the line, my incredible adoptive father, Arthur, passed away and left me his entire fortune. The will was barely settled when the man who had cast me aside like a piece of trash appeared on my doorstep, his hand held out. As I walk you through this story of betrayal and ultimate redemption, I'd love to know where you're watching from. And please hit that subscribe button if you've ever found yourself having to redefine what family truly means. My first memories were painted inside a modest 2-story house in a quiet suburb of Denver, Colorado. It was the kind of place you see in movies, with perfectly manicured lawns, the smell of weekend barbecues in the air, and the sound of kids' bikes rattling down the sidewalks. To any outsider looking in, we must have seemed like the quintessential American family. My biological father, Robert Thorne, was an account manager at a downtown bank. He was a stern, traditional man who wore his authority like a well-tailored suit and rarely offered a smile. My mother, Eleanor, was a homemaker whose entire world revolved around cooking, cleaning, and ensuring the household ran with silent efficiency. She was a quiet, almost submissive woman who seldom challenged my father's decisions, at least not where I could see. The family portrait was completed by my 2 older brothers. Mark was a full decade older than me, already a teenager when I was just beginning to string memories together. Leo was 6 years my senior, still a kid, but old enough to see his little sister as a constant annoyance. Despite the age differences, those early years felt, for the most part, like a normal, happy childhood. I have hazy recollections of us all piled on the couch for movie nights, of summer picnics by the lake, and of the chaos of Christmas mornings. But even within those warm memories, there were cold undercurrents, subtle signs of the storm to come. I could still picture the way my father's face would light up with pride whenever my brothers brought home good grades or a sports trophy. With me, however, his praise was always measured, his approval rationed. I was too young to grasp the meaning behind it then, but the seeds of his disappointment in me were already taking root. My father came from a very traditional family, one where sons were revered as the true heirs, destined to carry on the family name and build a legacy. Daughters, on the other hand, were seen as temporary assets, destined to be married off and become part of someone else's lineage. This cultural baggage dictated his entire worldview and would eventually shatter my own. As I got a little older, his disappointment became harder to ignore. Around the age of 5, I began to actively notice how differently he treated me compared to Mark and Leo. If I brought home a test with a perfect score, he'd give a simple nod and a good job. If Leo did the same, it was a cause for celebration, complete with high fives and a special dessert after dinner. My mother seemed to sense this growing imbalance and tried to overcompensate in her own quiet way. She'd spend hours teaching me traditional recipes and showing me the proper way to manage a household. Looking back, I see she was trying to increase my value in the only currency she understood, molding me into a perfect future wife and mother. "A man wants a woman who knows how to run a home," she would say, as she showed me how to fold the laundry just so. "These skills will make you a prize for someone one day." I desperately tried to become the child my father wanted. I climbed trees with the neighborhood boys, I excelled in math and science, and my report cards were flawless. I held on to the childish belief that if I could just be smart enough, strong enough, exceptional enough, he would finally see me as being just as worthy as my brothers. One year, I even asked for a set of toy trucks for Christmas instead of a doll, just hoping to see that flicker of approval in his eyes. It never came. My 6th birthday is a memory that stands out in sharp, painful relief. It was the day I truly understood my place in the family's pecking order. For their birthdays, my brothers got new bikes, video game consoles, and big parties with all their friends. For my birthday, there was a small cake, a few gifts from my mother and brothers, and a card from my father with a crisp $20 bill tucked inside. He claimed he had to work late and missed the small celebration. Later that evening, I overheard him on the phone with a relative. Yes, we had a small thing for Clara, he said. Nothing fancy, just family. No sense in making a big production for a girl. That night, I cried myself to sleep, clutching the $20 bill that felt like a price tag on my worth. I was finally starting to understand that in my father's eyes, I was lesser simply because of my gender. I was an investment with no return, a disappointment from the moment the doctor had announced, "It's a girl." As I neared my 7th birthday, I became hyper-aware of my campaign to win my father's approval. I started bringing home every piece of artwork from school, proudly presenting science projects that had won first place, and even trying to learn about football so I could talk to him about his favorite team. He would acknowledge these efforts with a brief nod or a distracted pat on the head, but his focus would always snap back to my brothers and their latest accomplishments. One evening, I heard him talking to his own brother on the phone, his voice low but carrying through the house. He didn't know I was standing just around the corner in the hallway. "What am I supposed to do with a useless daughter?" he said. "The boys will carry on the Thorne name, go to good colleges, make something of themselves. Clara will just get married and belong to another family. All the money we pour into her is just an investment in some other man's future." Those words felt like they were carved into my heart with a knife. Useless, a burden, an investment without a return. At 7 years old, I was already seen as a liability, not a beloved child. But even then, I could never have imagined just how far he would go to get rid of his disappointing daughter. Everything shifted when I was 7.5. My mother gathered all of us in the living room on a Sunday afternoon, a nervous smile playing on her lips as she announced she was pregnant again. My father, who was usually so stoic, broke into the widest grin I had ever seen on his face. He actually hugged my mother, a rare sight, and declared with absolute certainty, "This time, it will be another son." I can feel it. There was no room for doubt in his voice, no space for any other possibility. I remember looking at my mother's face, desperately searching for some sign of defense for me, some suggestion that another daughter would be just as welcome. There was nothing. She just smiled and nodded, one hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. In the months that followed, our house transformed into a shrine for a baby boy. My father cleared out the small home office next to their bedroom and began turning it into a nursery. Everything was blue. The paint on the walls was a deep, masculine blue with matching curtains and crib sheets. He started buying tiny sports jerseys, miniature baseball gloves, and toy cars that the baby wouldn't be able to play with for years. "My son will be a natural athlete," he would announce at the dinner table. "I can already tell he's going to be strong. I felt him kick yesterday, and it was powerful. The kick of a future soccer star." Family gatherings became exercises in torture. Relatives would pat my mother's growing belly and make comments like, "The Thorne family needs more strong boys," or "Robert must be so thrilled to have another son on the way." No one ever entertained the thought that the baby might be a girl, or how those words might be affecting me as I stood silently in the corner, becoming more and more invisible with each passing day. I tried to join in on the excitement, thinking that if I showed enthusiasm for my new sibling, my father might finally include me in his happiness. "I can help take care of the baby," I offered one evening as my mother folded a stack of tiny blue onesies. "Girls are naturally good at that," my father remarked. It wasn't said unkindly, but it made it perfectly clear what he saw as my only role. Not achievement, not carrying on a legacy, but providing supportive care for the truly valuable members of the family. When my brother Nathan was born, my father's joy was a force of nature. He passed out expensive cigars at the hospital, took hundreds of photos, and called every person he knew to announce the arrival of his second, perfect son. He never said which of my other brothers was the first, but I knew it was a title I would never even be in the running for. I tried to make myself useful, helping my mother with the new baby. I would run and get diapers, help prepare bottles, and even learned how to fold the endless piles of clean laundry. At 8 years old, I was doing everything I could to prove my worth to a father who could no longer see me. His vision completely filled by the perfect baby boy who was now the center of his universe. As Nathan became the sole focus of all attention, I became a ghost in my own home. There were days I would come home from school and no one would even ask me how it went. Dinners were consumed with discussions of Nathan's latest milestone, whether it was rolling over, smiling, or making a new gurgling sound. My straight A report card was given a cursory glance and set on the kitchen counter, forgotten amidst a celebration over Nathan learning to grasp a rattle. Around the same time, I started to overhear hushed, worried conversations about money. My father would talk in low tones with my mother about tightening the belt and cutting back on unnecessary expenses. I didn't understand much about finances at that age, but I could feel the tension ratcheting up in the house. One night, about 6 months after Nathan was born, I got out of bed for a glass of water and heard my parents talking in the living room. I froze in the dark hallway and listened to words that would shatter my world. "We can't afford to raise 3 children properly," my father was saying. "Mark will be starting college soon. Leo has his sports, and Nathan needs the best of everything. Something has to give." "What are you suggesting, Robert?" my mother asked, her voice small and trembling. "Clara is young," he said. "She could adjust to a new family, a new life. There are agencies that place children with families who can give them better opportunities than we can right now." The glass nearly slipped from my hand. I couldn't breathe. My own father was talking about sending me away like I was an old chair that no longer matched the decor. "She's our daughter," my mother protested, but her voice was weak, lacking any real conviction. "She's a girl," my father replied, as if that single word explained everything. "Any family would be happy to have a well-behaved girl. And look at Nathan. He's perfect. He's our future. We need to focus our resources where they will matter most for the family legacy." I crept back to my room, my thirst gone, my 8-year-old mind reeling from the magnitude of the betrayal. They were going to get rid of me, not because they couldn't afford me, but because I wasn't worth the cost. Nathan was worth every sacrifice, every dollar, every ounce of their love. I was disposable. In the weeks that followed, I became desperate to make myself indispensable. I did more chores without being asked. I stopped asking for anything, new clothes or books for school. I ate less at dinner, trying to make myself as small and undemanding as I possibly could, hoping they'd see how little it cost to keep me. I even smothered Nathan with attention, thinking that if I proved my value as a caretaker, they might see a reason to let me stay. But the decision had already been carved in stone. I was a girl in a family that only valued boys, and no amount of self-erasure could change that fundamental truth. On a crisp autumn morning just after my 8th birthday, my parents sat me down in the living room for a family discussion. Mark was away at college, and Leo was at a friend's house. Baby Nathan was napping upstairs. It was just the 3 of us sitting in a heavy, uncomfortable silence before my father cleared his throat and began. "Clara," he said, his voice strangely formal, like he was addressing a business client, not his daughter. "Your mother and I have made a very difficult decision, but we believe it's for the best. For everyone, especially you." I knew what was coming, but hearing the words spoken aloud made my stomach twist into a painful knot. "We've been struggling financially," he went on, a lie so bald it was almost impressive. "We weren't wealthy, but he had just gotten a promotion. The financial strain was entirely self-created by the extravagant nursery, the designer baby clothes, and the college fund he'd started for Nathan before he was even born. We found a wonderful agency that places children with families who can give them more," my mother added, her eyes glued to her hands in her lap. "They'll find you a new home with people who can focus all their attention on you." "But I don't need much," I whispered. my voice trembling. I can share a room with Nathan when he's older. I can wear Leo's old clothes. I can help more. This isn't about what you need, Clara, my father said firmly. This is about what's best for you. Another family can give you more opportunities. The unspoken truth hung thick and suffocating in the air between us. This wasn't about finances or opportunities. It was about my gender. I was a resource drain, taking away from his sons, his true legacy. Please, I begged, tears streaming down my face. I'll be better. I'll be perfect. Just let me stay. This is my home. You're my family. My mother started to cry then. Silent tears she quickly wiped away. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might break, that she might stand up to him and insist I stay, but she remained silent, deferring to his authority as she always did. The arrangements are made, my father said with cold finality. You'll be leaving tomorrow morning. Pack your essential belongings tonight. 1 suitcase. 1 suitcase for 8 years of life. 1 suitcase to hold the fragments of a childhood being ripped away from me. I nodded numbly, unable to speak through the shock and grief. That night, I moved through my room like a phantom, trying to decide what to take and what to leave. A few clothes, some books, my favorite stuffed bear that my grandmother had given me. What does an 8-year-old choose when her entire world is being packed away? I tucked in a photo of us from the Christmas before Nathan was born, a time when I still believed I was a permanent part of this family. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, memorizing the shadows on my ceiling, the feel of my own blankets, the familiar creaks of the house that had been my only home. I cried, but I cried silently, having learned long ago that my father had no patience for emotional displays. I wondered what I had done so wrong, besides just existing. I made silent promises to a universe that wasn't listening that I would be better, quieter, smarter, less demanding, less female, if only I could stay. Morning arrived with a cruel swiftness. My mother made my favorite pancakes, as if this small act of kindness could somehow atone for what they were about to do. I couldn't swallow a bite. My father kept checking his watch, anxious to get this unpleasant task over with. The drive to the agency was tense and silent. I sat in the back, my small suitcase beside me, watching familiar streets pass by, wondering if I would ever see them again. The agency building was cold and institutional, smelling of antiseptic and false hope. Inside, a woman with a kind face and sad eyes led us to a small office. My father immediately started on the paperwork, his pen moving efficiently across the forms that would legally sever me from the only family I had ever known. When it was time to say goodbye, he patted my shoulder awkwardly. "Be good," he said, as if I were going off to summer camp. "Listen to the adults and do what you're told." My mother knelt and hugged me quickly. "I love you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Then she turned and walked away, following my father out the door. I ran to the window and watched them get in their car and drive off without a single backward glance. The social worker placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I shrugged it off. I didn't want comfort from a stranger. I wanted my family, as flawed as they were, to want me. That night, in a sterile room at the group home, I finally broke down completely. I sobbed into a pillow that smelled of industrial detergent, my whole body shaking with grief and betrayal. 8 years old, abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, all because I was a girl. In that moment, something inside me hardened. I made a vow to myself that I would never again let my worth be defined by someone else. I would never again beg for love, and I would never, ever forget what my parents had done. The next year of my life was a blur of temporary homes and unfamiliar faces. I was shuffled between 3 different foster placements, each one a new kind of disappointment. I retreated further into myself, building walls around my heart. Schoolwork became my only refuge. My social worker, a kind woman named Mrs. Davis, grew concerned. "It's okay to let people in, Clara," she would tell me. "Not everyone will leave you." I didn't believe her. Then she told me about a new placement. His name is Arthur Vance, she said. He's 60, a widower. He has an excellent reputation. I shrugged, past the point of hoping. A week later, I was pulling up to a beautiful craftsman-style house surrounded by trees. Arthur Vance was not what I expected. He was tall and lean with a full head of silver hair and the kindest blue eyes I had ever seen. "You must be Clara," he said, kneeling to my level. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Mrs. Davis tells me you're quite the reader." That first visit was a revelation. Instead of a list of rules, he gave me a tour of his home, ending in an incredible library. When he showed me my potential room, bright and airy with a window seat, he said, "I thought if you decided to stay, you could choose the colors yourself. This would be your space, after all." The concept of having my own space, a place I could make my own, was completely foreign to me. Despite the good first impression, I remained guarded when I moved in. I was polite but distant, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Arthur never pushed. He simply included me in his life. He asked about my day and actually listened to the answers. He noticed my love for books and would leave new ones on my desk. 6 weeks in, I had a nightmare and woke up screaming. Instead of irritation, I heard a gentle knock. Arthur came in with a mug of hot chocolate. "Bad dream?" he asked softly. He didn't press for details. He just sat with me until I felt calm. "I'll be right outside if you need anything," he said, and I later found out he had sat in a chair in the hallway all night, just to make me feel safe. It was the first crack in the wall I had built around my heart. Over the next year, Arthur's patient, steady love began to wear down my defenses. He came to every school event, celebrated my grades, and introduced me to his passion for architecture, taking me to see remarkable buildings around Denver. Slowly, I began to trust him. I started to feel safe. On my 10th birthday, Arthur took me to the courthouse. "I would like to adopt you, Clara," he said, his eyes smiling, "if that's something you would want." Tears I had sworn I would never cry again filled my eyes, but these were tears of hope. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, please." 3 months later, I officially became Clara Montgomery Vance. I had a father who had chosen me. The first thing we did was redecorate my room. "This is your forever home now," he said. The safety and stability Arthur provided changed everything. He found me a wonderful therapist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, who helped me work through the trauma of my abandonment. "What your parents did was about their limitations, not yours," she would say. With Arthur's support, I finally started to believe it. I made my first real friend, a vibrant girl named Maya Chen. My interest in architecture blossomed into a real passion, which Arthur nurtured with books, museum trips, and a professional drafting set for my 16th birthday. "You have a unique perspective, Clara," he told me. "You understand that buildings are about creating spaces where people feel safe and valued." I excelled in high school and, with Arthur's full support, applied to top architecture programs. When I got into Columbia, he framed the acceptance letter. The night before I left for college, he told me, "You made me a father, Clara. There is no greater gift." I graduated with honors, and Arthur was in the audience crying unashamedly. I took a job with a prestigious firm back in Denver to be close to him. By the time I was 30, I was a senior architect winning awards for my human-centered designs. But as my career soared, a shadow began to fall. Arthur's health started to decline. At first, he brushed off my concerns. Then, one evening, he confessed, "I have pancreatic cancer, Clara. Stage 4. The world stopped. He had known for 3 months. The prognosis was grim. Any treatment would only buy a few painful months. "I need you to help me die with dignity," he said, "and then I need you to live your life fully." The next 6 months were a master class in grace. I took a leave from work to care for him. We filled his final days with love and memories. He passed away peacefully on a quiet spring morning with me holding his hand. The grief was immense, but so was my gratitude. 3 weeks later, Arthur's lawyer, David Sterling, called me in. I knew Arthur was comfortable, but I was unprepared for the truth. Arthur was worth approximately $32 million, David explained, and he left everything to you, Clara. You are his sole heir. The inheritance made local news. A month later, the strange phone calls started. Then, my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw a man in his 60s I didn't recognize, yet there was something eerily familiar about him. "Can I help you?" I asked through the intercom. "Clara Thorne?" he asked, using a name I hadn't heard in 26 years. "It's your father, Robert Thorne." My blood ran cold. The man who had thrown me away was on my doorstep. I opened the door. "My name is Clara Montgomery Vance," I said, my voice like ice. "What do you want?" He launched into a practice speech about how he'd been searching for me for years, how my mother's dying wish was for him to make amends. "How convenient," I replied. 26 years of silence, and you show up weeks after my inheritance makes the news. I hired a private investigator. The report confirmed my every suspicion. Robert was in financial ruin, buried in gambling debt. He had never made a single attempt to find me. My brothers had cut ties with him years ago due to his manipulative behavior. The precious son, Nathan, hadn't spoken to him in years. I agreed to meet him in a public restaurant. He tried to lay on the charm, but I cut right to it. "You gave me away because I was a girl and therefore worthless to you." His mask slipped. "We're family, Clara," he said, his eyes calculating. "Blood. That counts for something. This Arthur Vance, he was just some man who took you in." I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. "Arthur Vance was more of a father to me in 1 week than you were in 8 years. He chose me. He loved me. He was my real father. He was rich." Robert spat, his true nature finally showing. "You owe me. I gave you life." "You're right about one thing," I said, standing up. "Your rejection led me to Arthur, and for that, I thank you. But that is all you will ever get from me." As I walked away, he shouted, "You're nothing but an ungrateful girl who got lucky." The words hurt, but I didn't look back. The encounter left me shaken but resolute. I wouldn't let him poison Arthur's legacy. Robert began a campaign of harassment. Calls, emails, even showing up at my office parking garage. That was the final straw. I saw a path forward, a way to turn this pain into purpose. I called David. "I want to establish a foundation," I explained. "The Arthur Vance Foundation for Brighter Futures. It will support kids who have been abandoned or aged out of the foster system." The work of creating the foundation became my therapy. During this time, I got an email from my brother, Leo. He had seen an article about the foundation and wanted to connect. We met, and for the first time, I began to build a bridge back to a piece of my past, but on my own terms. He confirmed our mother had regretted her weakness and that he was sorry he'd been too young to stop what happened. Just as I was finding this new peace, Robert's threats escalated. He hired a cheap lawyer to contest the adoption. I told David to arrange one final meeting. In the conference room, I faced him. "I am here to make one thing clear," I said, cutting him off. "You will never get a single dollar from me." I made him one offer. I would pay for addiction counseling for his gambling problem. He slammed his hand on the table. "I am your father. You owe me." "Arthur taught me that being a father is about love, not blood," I replied calmly. "You contributed DNA, nothing more. You have no claim on me, my success, or my inheritance. This is the last time we will speak. Any further contact will result in a restraining order. I am not the helpless child you discarded anymore. I am Clara Montgomery Vance, and I owe you nothing." The harassment stopped. 6 months later, the foundation opened its first housing project for young adults aging out of foster care. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, I shared my story. "Family isn't defined by blood," I told the crowd. "It's defined by choice, by commitment, by showing up. Arthur Vance chose me." As I cut the ribbon, I felt his pride surrounding me. I had transformed the fortune he left me into a living legacy. That night, sitting in Arthur's favorite chair, I looked at a photo of us on my graduation day. "We did it, Dad," I whispered. "We turned something broken into something beautiful. The wound from my biological parents' rejection will always be a part of me, a scar that shaped but never defined me. Through Arthur's love and my own resilience, that wound has been transformed into wisdom, that rejection into purpose." Have you ever had to redefine what family means to you? Has someone outside your biological family become your true support system? Share your stories in the comments below. If this journey of overcoming abandonment to find strength resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience. And remember, family is not about who shares your DNA, but who shares your journey through life's challenges and celebrations. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find or build the family your heart deserves. End of story.